My name is Darryl Kwao. First up, inflation. Surging food prices once again drove inflation for the month of April 2022 to 23.6%. This is the highest since January 2004. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, imported inflation hit 24.7%, indicating increasing prices of imported items. Here's government statistician Professor Samuel Enim, who called on policymakers to address the rising prices of goods and services in the country.
CPI for April 2022 was 156.5 relative to 126.6 recorded for the same time in April 2021. The computation of rate of inflation based on these indices, that is 156.5 for the month of April 2022 and 126.6 for the month of April 2021, leads to a year-on-year rate of inflation of 23.6. This literally means that prices of goods and services have gone up by 23.6% over a one-year period, specifically between April 2021 and April 2022. Relative to March 2022, this indicates a 4.2 percentage point inflation rate higher than the rate that was recorded in March 2022, which stood at 19.4%. This culminates in a first quarter inflation rate of 16.3, which is about 6.2 percentage point what was recorded for the same time in the first quarter of 2021. On a month-on-month basis, that is between March 2022 and April 2022, rate of inflation was 5.1%, and again this indicates a variation from 4.0 that was recorded on a month-on-month basis for March 2022 relative to April 2022, 5.1%. This is indicating a 1.1 percentage difference. This literally means that on a month-on-month basis, that is between March and April 2022, prices of goods and services have gone up by 5.1%. We do disaggregations at the higher level, specifically the food and non-food inflation, and also from a locally produced items and an imported item perspective. We see that we've sustained the variation between food and non-food inflation for both March and April 2022, which stood at about 5.3%. Specifically, food inflation for April 2022 was 26.6% relative to non-food inflation 21.3%.
All right, government statistician Professor Samuel Enim there on the latest inflation number, which is the highest since 2004. Joining me via Zoom to discuss this is Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Seram Kawo. Great to have you on the program. Where are we headed? Seram, can you hear me?
Yeah, Dari, I can hear you.
Yes, I was just asking your thoughts on the latest figures, the skyrocketing inflation. Where are we headed?
It means that the policymakers must try to sit up on trying to work on the rate of inflation that we have in Ghana, especially where we look at the food category, that the prices that we are getting is not looking, the rates that we are getting is not looking too good for the country. 23.6% rate of inflation over a period of 1 year is not the best for our country. And so policymakers, government, finance ministry, Bank of Ghana, and the rest have to have a meeting and find out how best they are going to look at this situation. We have a problem in our country where we do not monitor the prices of items on the market, especially when the fixing of the price becomes a problem. So the producers, farmers, and the rest fix their own prices, and that is affecting the rate of inflation that we have in our country.
Okay, and the situation, I guess, is being aggravated further by the rising cost of imports. Like we are told, we are seeing over 24% inflation in terms of imported items, and that doesn't make the situation any better.
Yes, the rising cost of imports has been there for some time. Ghana, normally, we are import-producing country, and so we import a lot of the products that we have in our country. Currently, we have fish that we import, and most of the poultry products that we have are also imported. This has aggravated the situation when we have exchange rate not being stable over time. And so our exchange rate going up had also affected whatever that we are doing in our country in terms of the products that we produce. And so there is a need for us to have a drive on export so that we also export a lot of the things that we have in our country. And that can go a long way to affect. Some of the things can be produced in this country, but then it is a policy that government must make so that we provide subsidies for our farmers and the rest to produce the things in large quantities, thereby driving the prices down.
And I just want you to explain to our audience who are wondering, how come inflation can move from 19% in March to 23.6%? What factors are contributing to this?
Okay, so when we talk about inflation going up, we are simply looking at the rate at which prices of goods and services have gone up over the period. And so these prices of items have gone up over the period can be due to a lot of factors. One is we can look at the fuel prices that we have. Fuel prices will drive almost everything that we have in our economy. And so when fuel prices have gone up, this will go a long way to affect the price of the products that we have. Those companies that are into manufacturing, when they import a lot of the products and then they bring raw materials into our country, which cannot be produced locally, that import rates can also go into the prices of the products that we have. Labor is agitating for increase in salaries. So where there are increases in salaries and the rest, that will go a long way to affect the prices of the products that we have. Utilities going up, and they also affect the prices of the products that we have in our country. And so all these things put together goes a long way to affect the prices, thereby driving the cost of doing business and also increasing the prices of the items. Let us also remember that the Bank of Ghana had increased the policy rate, and so this rate has also gone up to affect the cost of borrowing from the banks. And so if businesses borrow from the banks to do their own work, that they pass this particular cost to the consumer, and that can also affect businesses that we are doing. Currently, we have the e-levy coming in. We cannot overlook that particular one. The prices of the cost of payment of this e-levy will be drawn down to the goods and services that are being produced by producers in our country and retailers in our country.
Okay.
And so all these things will drive inflation up.
So Russia's war on Ukraine is still going on. There's still uncertainty when it comes to the price of crude oil. It's been going up. And then we have to deal with utility tariffs going up potentially. That means that we should anticipate inflation to go up further in the coming months. Now, Fitch projected 16% end-year inflation. Do you think with these factors, it is attainable?
In fact, if we have the utilities going up again in our country, prices for water and electricity going up, these are basic items almost all that affect the cost component of every company. And so once it goes up, it's going to affect the prices of items that we find on the market. For that can also go and drive the fuel prices that we have. And so inflation will not stop now. The only way that these things can stop is where our institutions that are responsible for pricing sit with producers and importers, and then put a cost component, not a price control per se, but just as it is done in the fuel sector, in the oil, by the oil marketing companies, where they have a range by which they can charge the prices of the commodities that we have. Then we encourage some of these things to take place in other areas such as food and beverages that we have in our country.
All right, and in a minute, if you had a word for government as to what to do in the short term to mitigate the impact on the populace, what would that be?
Government should try to, in terms of the utilities, the rate of increase that is being asked by the utility providers is outrageous. If that goes up, that will affect a lot of the things that we have. Government should immediately put up a task force that will go around the various markets, talk with the market queens and kings that we have, and then they'll look at the prices of the commodities that we have so that they will not just arbitrarily increase the price of the commodities that we have on the market. Government should also still look at the fuel prices and also sit with the operators of the transport union so that they will not increase the prices as they deem to have been doing over time.
All right, Sarah Mkao, Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. I appreciate your time this afternoon. You're watching The Marketplace.
Thank you.
Corruption, cost and access to capital, cost of land and government bureaucracy continue to be the biggest worries of businesses in the country. That's according to a survey conducted by accounting and auditing firm PwC on the country's business climate for the UK-Ghana Chamber of Commerce. We put together some infographics. We want to show you that now. So, for instance, when it comes to the cost and access to capital, that's scored 80%. Corruption, 68%. Cost of land, 65%. And government bureaucracy, 60%. Joining me to discuss this further is Kwame Anseh-Kufu, Senior Manager Advisory with the responsibility for strategy consulting at PwC. Grateful for your time. Tell us about the businesses you sampled and the findings.
Good afternoon, Daryl, and thank you for hosting me on your program. In response to the question you asked, the businesses that participated in this survey are essentially businesses that are members of the UK-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, who we collaborated with in preparing the survey. And so these are businesses that are incorporated and have operations in the country. By way of size, the majority of the sizes of these companies they are medium-sized organizations. So most of them perhaps employing people of less than 50. And then the majority are also companies that are located in the Greater Accra region. About 90 or 91% of the companies that participated in the survey operate from the Greater Accra region, where they remain in the other regions of the country.
And so what could be the impact of this on future investments if the sentiments raised by the firms are not dealt with? Right.
So, as you had mentioned in your introduction, the businesses had highlighted a number of areas that were significant pain points for them. They had mentioned the cost and availability of capital. Interestingly, they mentioned corruption in the government system, in the government bureaucracy, cost of land and property also. And these are issues that these businesses that particularly have been participating in this business climate survey have been highlighted in previous surveys. Now, in sampling or in surveying this organization, many of them have indicated that, for instance, the promise of having low corruption is one of the reasons that motivated them to set up camp in our economy. So you can imagine if these issues are not tackled with, I'm sure it's to come to a point where some businesses might have to cut back on their operations and would not feel encouraged to expand on their operations, or might even shut down and leave for other territories that they consider offer them a more congenial operating environment to work from. And we know what that therefore means. If businesses are winding down the operations. They are cutting back. They are not producing more. They are laying off staff. They will be adding to the unemployment problem. Our GDP will be shrinking. Government wouldn't be making a lot of tax revenue. So the ripple effect from not handling these issues in a manner that creates a continual operating environment for businesses are quite far-reaching out there.
Kwame Anseh-Kufu, thank you so much. Senior Manager Advisory at PwC, grateful for your time. We're keeping our eyes on the PRC's engagements with stakeholders concerning proposals by some utility companies for an increase in tariffs. Well, while we wait for the outcome of deliberations, joining me next is President of the Ghana Hotels Association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike Jr. Great to see you this Wednesday afternoon. I want a quick response from you first, Dr. Nyameke, on the latest inflation numbers and what it means for the operations of hoteliers.
Thank you, Daryl, for the opportunity. I made this point a couple of months ago with regards to the cost of living and its impact on the industry. And indeed, it has not changed. Because you would agree with me that the business environment has become very volatile with daily increases in commodity prices. And all these factor into our business costing and operations as well. So long as the prices are not stable, and the statistician has made it quite clear over the past year, it will definitely have an impact. I do know that some of the hotels, depending on their profit margins, are able to cushion some of these price changes. But to what extent can they go on cushioning those changes without adjusting their clients? So basically, it's certainly affecting the business, and more so when we are in the business that requires a lot of maintenance on a daily basis, dealing with a lot of commodities all the time, artisans and different operatives. It's a big challenge.
I wanted to particularly address the issues to do with food prices because as we are hearing, that is a major contributor to the numbers that we are getting from the Ghana Statistical Service now, 23.6%. I was speaking with some small businesses yesterday. They were sharing, who are in the food business, they were sharing their experiences about how they have to adjust. And so tell me about your experiences as hoteliers, because you have to feed your guests as well.
Exactly, Dara. And the other time I made that point, it was one of the main issues that I was focusing on. When we talk about hotels, sometimes attention drives more to the accommodation part of it. But the F&B also forms a very important component of the business. And where you have to deal with such price hikes, especially with these items, it's a very big challenge. And it's not something that you can suspend as a part of your business operations as a hotel. No, the guests have to eat, like you rightly mentioned. So it's an area we are battling with, except that, you know, the business, the hotel industry has various components with regards to its operations. So sometimes there are trade-offs here and there. Sometimes the accommodation inputs or the revenue from accommodation may help you to deal with food prices changes, and then when the accommodation also goes down, sometimes the F&B, other operatives like the spa, and then some also have car rentals, and they also have to manage the system. So that is how some of the hotels are surviving. But again, to what extent can these trade-offs keep us in business? And that's obviously the challenge we are having to deal with.
And as we speak, there are engagements currently underway. The PRC is engaging stakeholders on demands by utility companies for an increase in tariffs. The ECG, for instance, proposing a 148% increase in tariffs. That is very huge. I mean, and I'm asking you this also based on the fact that you guys are just recovering from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And just when you are in the phase of recovery, you're going to be hit by inflation and high utility tariffs as well.
Let me confess that when I read about the adjustment that the ECG and Ghana Water Company were asking for, my heart skipped a beat. You know, because
I can understand.
My heart really skipped a bit until I think this morning, until this morning when I heard a deputy energy minister suggest that tariffs may not be increased. But even then, I believe that the onus lies on the PURC. But the fact is that utilities, that's water and power, they form a very crucial part of our business. So as we speak, some of the hotel side is about between 9 to 15% of the operational cost is taken by electricity, and the lower percentage is taken by. So if we should experience any upward adjustment, and I'm talking a significant one, it will certainly affect the business. Frankly, we have enjoyed some stability in electricity and water tariffs, which we are very grateful for. But I think the timing of this proposed adjustment is very, very uncomfortable. As you rightly said, we are trying to recover from the impact of the COVID. Okay, and together with the other price hikes and the inflation going on, to be hit by this proposed adjustment, we are likely to face serious challenges. But whilst at that, you see, we've been talking about the use of other cheaper sources of power. And at one point, you remember that the Energy Commission had this policy where excess power generated from the solar energy go to the national grid. Okay, and that was really pushing a lot of players into the solar energy business. We were even at a point where we had an engagement with an American company which was going to help the hotels to have the solar energy so that the excess power would be sold to the national grid, because the initial cost is very, very high. So the plan was that when we sell the excess power, we would have some input as well. But unfortunately, the policy was changed. And recently at the business summit, I think 22, at the presidential business summit, the energy ministers indicated that they were taking a second look at it. I think in situations like this, when the energy companies are looking for the increase in tariffs, these are things that we need to consider, especially for businesses like hotels, which can easily use solar at a cheaper rate compared to the ECG. And then also, we've always complained about this imbalance or the relativity between the commercial tariffs and then the domestic tariffs. Again, the energy minister, Napo, at that same presidential business summit in September 2021, he mentioned that they were taking a serious look at that. Because we have argued that in relative terms, commercial tariffs for energy must be cheaper than domestic for obvious reasons. And this is still hanging on our necks, and that is why a lot of the hotels or even commercial entities facing challenges when it comes to.
Okay. I have just 30 seconds. I just want to ask you this. So our hoteliers already revising prices, the rates they charge? Because I know this came up some time past where we're getting news that the cost of operations, the cost was driving you guys to alter your rates a bit. And so with this happening, are we seeing significant changes when it comes to what you're charging customers?
I must assure you that we haven't received any feedback on changes in rates. You see, and we are not a business entity that agrees on price changes in wholesale terms, so to speak. Every hotel, depending on its business input, depending on its cost of operation, can decide to adjust its rates at any time, look at the business environment. But we have not received any feedback on significant changes in the rate. So please feel free to go to your hotels and the rate.
And please try and keep it that way. Edward Akinyamuke Jr.
God willing.
Grateful for your time on the marketplace. That's our program tonight. You can always check out our stories on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for watching.